Today's human rights activist profile is going to be on Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was born on October 2nd, 1869 to a Hindu family in British India. He is described on Wikipedia as a lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and a political ethicist who employed nonviolent resistance. This means that he sought to reject colonial powers ruling over India and establish an independent nation state with civil rights, human rights, and a maintenance of cultural identity, as well as practice making judgments about actions within politics using morality. He, to his fellow Indians, was the Mahatma, or Great Soul. He was raised in a home that worshipped the Hindu god Vishnu and had an influence of Jainism. Because of this upbringing, his lifestyle adopted vegetarianism, self-purification through fasting, tolerance of religious beliefs, and ahimsa, which is the practice of not injury to all living beings. When his father was ill, he nursed him until his death, which happened not too long after. His strengths were not on the playing field or in the classroom, and in addition, he was married by the age of 13. A rebellious Mohandas engaged in smoking, stealing, and concealed atheism. What was even more hidden was an insatiable itch for self-improvement, which was amplified by the living models of Hindu mythology, Harish Chandra, and Prahlada. With Gujarati as his first language, he learned English after attending the University of Bombay and Samaldis College to better understand the lectures. There was a family tradition of holding high office in one of the states of Gujarat, so while he wanted to be a doctor, he knew he would have to become a barrister, especially because his religious beliefs denounced experimentation on animals. He joined one of the 4 London law colleges known as the Inner Temple, but only after a few obstacles. His deceased father did not leave much property to the family. He took a vow to ease his mother's concerns about him abstaining from meat, wine, and women, as well as the trip being forbade by leaders of the subcaste that his family belonged to. In England, he struggled to adapt to Western customs, but he was introduced to the Bible and the English translation of the Bhagavad Gita for the first time. The people responsible for these introductions also influenced him when they spoke about the dark side of capitalist and industrial society, valuing morals over the material and cooperation over conflict, as well as placing the simple life on a pedestal. When he returned home, he was met with news that his mother had died and the disappointment of his barrister degree not guaranteeing success. The field was just too crowded, and he was not an impressive character. Acceptance of a year-long contract from an Indian firm in South Africa led him to realize the brutal and dehumanizing racial discrimination that was happening in the former province of Natal and surrounding areas. But he decided to defend his truth and dignity with absence of aggression. At a farewell party that honored him, he learned through a publication that the Natal Legislative Assembly was considering a bill to deny Indians voting rights. Gandhi's hosts begged him to take up the mantle and fight against the bill on their behalf. All of this happened before he turned 18. At the age of 25 in 1894, he was not able to pump the brakes on the bill's passing, but he was successful in bringing attention to the injustice to the public and press. He soon became secretary of the Natal Indian Congress, which he himself founded after settling in Durban to practice law and initiate organization of a heterogeneous Indian community. A list of Indian grievances penetrated the press, legislature, and government, and was able to expose the discriminatory practices committed against Queen Victoria's Indian subjects, which was described as a skeleton in the closet. 2 years later, he visited India to pick up his wife and their 2 oldest children, and to campaign for the overseas support of Indians. The leaders he persuaded to address the pressing issues in public gatherings did so, but misconstrued tellings of his whereabouts agitated the European population back in Natal. He had been assaulted and almost lynched by a white mob when he landed in Durban the following year, and refused to seek rectification of a wrong in court. And when the South African War broke out, he made it his point to infuse into over 1,000 Indians the spirit of service to those they considered to be their oppressors. In 1906, Devotion to Truth, or Satyagraha, was born. It was a fresh approach to remedy wrongdoings through inviting suffering in order to resist antagonistic entities without utilizing violence. This originated during a mass protest in Johannesburg in defiance of the shameful Transvaal government ordinance to mandate registration of its Indian population. The 7-year resistance against bemuscled odds saw hundreds of Indians being incarcerated, shot, and flogged during the movement's final phase, where livelihoods were laid down in order to deny submission to law that snubbed their conscience and self-respect. South Africa, being poorly advertised by their harsh colonial rule, was being pestered by both the British and Indian government, to which they then accepted a negotiated compromise constructed by Gandhi and South African statesman General Chan Christian Smuts. Smuts penned, "The saint has left our shores, I hope forever," in a letter to a friend. Additionally, he wrote that it was his fate to be the antagonist of a man for whom even I had the highest respect. About a quarter of a century later, a durable solution for South Africa's Indian population was not yielded from Gandhi's efforts, but the landscape did paint a landscape fertile with opportunities for his talents to be exercised.